As part of my career, I look back and I'm like, well, I did it because I had to. I'm really not proud of it, but it's not something that I wanted my career to be based on. But I guess a lot of people liked it.
Greetings and salutations, my friends. Since it's the holiday season, I just wanted to take a quick second to say thank you. We've done over 100 episodes of the podcast this year, and I super appreciate you being on this ride with us, whether this is the first interview you've watched or whether you've been on this journey for every single one. We got a good one today with Charlie Haas. And also, since it's the holiday season, I have to thank Ridge for being an amazing supporter of the channel. If you're looking for the perfect gift for someone or for yourself, boom, that's it right there. This is your new wallet. Check it out. It's light, it's sleek, it's industrial, and I haven't seen your wallet, but I'm willing to bet that this is at least 50% smaller than that giant thing that you carry around in your back pocket. It holds up to 12 cards, plus you got room for cash there on the back, and there's over 30 different colors and styles to choose from. The one that I've been showing you here, and the one that if you ever see me, I'll be rocking in my front pocket, is called Forged Ash, because man, that's a pretty cool design right there. So normally the code CVV gets you 10% off, but because it's the holidays, they've stepped that up now to 15% off between now and December 7th, which is an amazing deal, plus free worldwide shipping and returns. So go to ridge.com/CVV or just enter the code CVV at checkout and you'll get 15% off your brand new Ridge wallet. Ridge.com/CVV. Now enjoy this amazing in-depth chat with Charlie Haas. Charlie, I'm pumped about this. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to go. I really am.
Well, and congrats on your new podcast, by the way. Let's get that all out of the way right now. Okay. So wherever people are listening to this, they can listen to your podcast as well.
Right, yeah. So my podcast is called The Haas Pod, or Wrestling's Greatest Podcast. What we're doing is we're covering all aspects of wrestling. Everyone knows my background and how important amateur wrestling is to me and was to me. So what we're doing is we cover all aspects to where we go from pro wrestling one week to amateur wrestling the other week. We go with the amateur wrestling. I'm diving deep into, we're interviewing the top high school prospects that are in the country, even the top youth prospects, and we ask them, what their work ethic is, what universities they're looking at, and where they would hope to be, if they want to continue into college for wrestling. And then we go out and we interview the top tier wrestling coaches, say Penn State, Iowa, Oklahoma State, just to name a few. And we'll ask them what they look like, what they look for in a top prospect, and then what they look for in, whether it's just not a wrestler but also a student athlete, because they're building for 4 to 5 years, and they want to make sure they have the right people in place to continue their success. Like Penn State right now has the perfect blueprint for it, although they did get beat by Iowa last year. But they've won the last 9 out of 11 national titles. So. And what we do is it's also really important for women as well, because women's wrestling and amateur wrestling is actually saving men's wrestling. Iowa just announced that they're going to start a women's team next year. Clemson started one. There's over 1,300 scholarships for women, but we only have like 1,100 women wrestling right now. So wow. We're trying to get it and get as much notice out there for women, to let them know, like, hey, if you continue in the sport, you can get your college paid for, And amateur wrestling is such a great, it's great for women especially because you may have. It's the type of sport where you have different weight classes, and you may have, say, you have a girl that's a little bit that's a little bigger and wants to play like center midfield in soccer, but it's really impossible for her to play that. You go to wrestling, she has a chance to wrestle against girls her own weight, with her own experience. She has a chance if she wins a state title, she has a chance to go on, and even if she doesn't win a state title, but she is successful, she does have the chance to go on to earn a scholarship. And then, right there, you're building self-esteem. You're building, she's just building a stronger mentality towards the workforce, because what she can use that she learns in wrestling is that she can apply that to life, and that, maybe she's put back into an uncomfortable position, but she'll learn to get out of it, and she can apply that towards life, when obstacles like death or taxes or divorce or, anything that gets thrown at you, you learn how to get out of that. And I think it's a it's a great success for women. It's going to help men's wrestling for sure, but it just helps women in general to become a stronger advocate for life when it comes to obstacles that are thrown in their way. So I'm looking forward to seeing what our podcast could do. What we want to do is bring for the amateur side, we want to bring coaches together with student athletes that they haven't met yet, and maybe that they've missed, in their process of recruiting, and we can maybe hook them up to where they can get a scholarship, or they can get looked at, or maybe they can go from a D2 to a D1 level, and then with the pro side, I just want to go into the stories that I had over my professional career, and then reconnect with the people I met from the independents all the way up to WWE, up to Japan, and just to tell the stories that we had and the fun times we had. But also maybe there is a chance to connect the amateur wrestling to the professional wrestling, like say with a Gable Stevenson, and maybe if they want to become a professional wrestler, I can use my connections to help them get into instead of fighting in the UFC, maybe they'll want to go to WWE or AEW. So help out there.
Yeah. Look, I think that everybody is very familiar with your amateur background, but now you're coaching amateur wrestling.
Yeah.
So you talk about what some of these recruiters are looking for. Yeah. What do you look for in one of your athletes?
So I coach a youth program that's like from kindergarten all the way up to high school. And when they get to high school, they really I push them on over to the high school team that we feed into, and that's Allen, Texas, and they're going for their 13th straight state title this year. So Jerry Best is the head coach there. Him and I grew up in Oklahoma. We know each other. We're like brothers. So I run the youth program. But what I keep telling the parents is that amateur wrestling is a marathon. It's not a sprint. That you have to, you listen. This technique is very hard. There's a counter to every counter, and there's a counter to every counter. You just can't go in there and say, "Hey, my kid's a great athlete." Yeah, that'll pay off, but I'll take hard work over talent any day. And that's what it takes to become a successful amateur wrestler. You got to put in the hard work. And the parents just want to see success right away, and they want to win now. I'm like, well, what's our long goal, our long-term goal, and that is to get a scholarship. It's to get our education paid for. And I go, and then from there, then you can say, okay, to win a national title, or to be a 4-time All-American, or to be an All-American. I go, but right now we just have to, we just got to keep the parents focused and saying, look, they may not be good right now, but for 5 years, 6 years, they may be the person that's getting pinned. They may become the person that's pinning everybody. So the green light turns on differently for everybody at different times. So you just got to stay focused, and you just got to keep the kids. It's a difficult sport. It's a hard sport, but you got to keep the kids having fun, and just let them know that hey, it doesn't matter right now. It's what happens in the future is the most important. So
I can relate to that so much. Yeah. I was a high school wrestler.
Yeah.
I didn't win a match for a long time.
Yeah.
But I learned so much about myself and so many life lessons that I carry with me now to this day.
Yeah.
I'm curious for you, Charlie, what do you think is the biggest life lesson that amateur wrestling has taught you?
So it's taught me like I said, okay, so wrestling puts you in uncomfortable positions, and nothing like putting your hat thrown on you, your arm twisted behind your back or over your head. Then you have to learn how to get out of that. So so what it taught me is that if I can get out of these moves in the amateur wrestling, then I apply that work ethic towards life, then I should be able to not only to succeed, but also to overcome adversity, when that's thrown at me. Like for instance, my divorce with Jackie, very difficult, very hard on the kids, but it's taught me to stay focused, and that things will turn out, in the long run, they'll turn out the best for you and for the kids, and they'll work out that way. Same with when my dad and my brother died. It's death is thrown at you, and you're like, you're the only male figure in your family now, and you're like, man, where's that male bondage? And you have to learn to overcome that. And so it's taught me that hey, I've been backed in uncomfortable positions, but you know what? I just keep my head straight on, and I just keep looking ahead. Then I will overcome, and I will figure out a way to get out of these uncomfortable positions, and be successful and to move on. I'll never forget, but I'll be able to move on. So that's what it's taught me so far.
I think that you surprised a lot of people with this new look. Like when this video came out, this interview that you
Yeah,
did with Hannibal, you had a new look, and I think that
yeah,
a lot of people were worried
yeah.
and concerned. But you're okay, right?
No, I'm fine. It is just like here's my when people quit working out, either they with my genes. When I quit working out, I just get really skinny, man, and I just get lean. I don't know why. A lot of people either eat a lot or get fat, or they get out of shape. Man, that's just the way I've always been. So when I start working out, that's when I start to bulk back up. No, but I'm fine. Like, that divorce took a lot out of me, and I quit working out. I was depressed, and you lost everything. You lose your partner for 15 years. No, she's with her boyfriend. They have a new baby, and I'm happy for them. Your kids are like, Dad, what's going on? There's somebody else living your life, and it's tough, man. And that is, man, that's what really hurts. Then you read what the people are saying about you. That's why I try to block that off. And then my daughter's reading this and she's all upset, and I'm like, man, I just wish people understood exactly what was going on in my time of my life. There's divorce is like a death, in a family. My dad just died, then my wife and I are done, and it was a tough situation, and but like I said, I've learned to overcome it. But I got back into working out, I'm back lifting. I thought I was done wrestling. I have to thank Robert Langdon. He got me back into it, and James Beard, SWE, and now I'm from there. Now I just signed a 28 match deal with World Class Pro Wrestling. So I'm excited about this.
Yeah, what brought you back to wrestling? Because, like you said, you had a bit of a hiatus from it.
Yeah, well, I was done, and Robert Langdon brought me in. They were doing they were honoring me to go into the Texoma Pro Hall of Fame, and they said, hey, we just want you to come out and just take a look at the new talent. I really didn't know that was going on, so they brought me into the ring, and they presented me a ring and all that for the Hall of Fame, and I didn't even know that was going on. I was like shocked. But when I was there, James Beard was there, and he was like, hey, Charlie, why don't you get back in wrestling? I'm like, man, I'm so out of shape for this. He's like, no, why don't you try? I go, James, look at me. I'm like, I got to get back into shape, all this and this. He's like, well, you never know until you try it. So my kids were like, come on, Dad. They saw me when I was little. They haven't seen me wrestle, and it's been a good 2 or 3 years, so I don't even know where I'm going to be at in wrestling. So we started with at Texoma Pro. Then I moved. Then I said, okay. I told James, I go, my cardio is fine. I go, my look doesn't look good, but my cardio is fine for SWE. Well, so we went out to SWE. I tried the first match, and then let's see, it was Kevin Sullivan was there. He was, and Teddy Long and Tom Lance, and they were like, they're like, man, you have that gear that people haven't seen in a while, that changed to fifth gear. I guess I'm a heel basically, and my style is a little bit different now from what everyone does. It's like where I'm not so much worried about the moves. I concentrate more on the work between the moves. I also bring the crowd into it. I interact, and that was something different that they didn't have. And I bring it up to a higher level as a heel. It's intense, very intense, and people were like, whoa. So I have this new. It's something that people haven't seen in about 3 or 4 years. So I have this new attitude with this new look. But it's all right. I kept reading where everyone's like, he's sick, he's all messed up or whatever. But I'm not. I'm fine. I'm just, and I thank those people for giving me more fuel to add to the fire. But I'm healthy. I'm back up to I'm 230 pounds. I'm 6'2". I put 315 up for 5 times on the bench. So, which isn't a lot compared to a lot of people, but for me, I think it's good. So I'm happy.
That'd be incredible for me. So yeah.
And I'm happy, and I'm working out, and so I thank you for everybody's concern. But man, all you gotta do is just go on and watch the progression from SWE to now. I'm right where I'm at. I'm right where I want to be.
When you thought that you were done with wrestling, where did you start to transition your life into? What were you doing?
Amateur wrestling, just focusing on the coaching. Also, I was doing I was working in medical device. So I was selling spine, which is medical device spine hardware. So I was working for Nuvasive Spine. Then I started working for Acuity Surgical. So I would go into basically like the neurosurgeons or the sports ortho doctors that work on spine and try to convince them why our screw and plates and why our procedures would be better than say Strykers or Zimmers or any other spine company out there. So it was I was usually using my degree finally. So.
I know that most people, when they either retire or they step away from wrestling, like you can't ever really fully get away from
No,
it. So
you can't.
how good did it feel when you finally went back out there in front of a crowd?
I was scared. I was nervous, but then when I heard them cheering, I was like, well, okay, that's good. But then when I heard them booing, I felt better. I don't know why. I like being a heel better. It really does. It's always been it's been easier for me to be a heel. I just find it easier to just like get people to boo me. It's hard for me to like dig down and say, come on, man, cheer for me. But it's so much easier to just say, I don't need your guys' help. I can do this on my own. I don't know what I've done for the last 3 or 4 years is I've had a lot of hardship, but I think I've taken all that and I have I have been able to embrace that, but I have been able to let it portray in my character when I wrestle, and especially in when I do my vignettes or when I do my promos, it kind of carries into that, and people are like, man, he can really speak, he can talk, like we never heard that part from him, so which is true, I mean, I was down and out for a while, and now I'm like, and I'll tell people in the promos, I'm like, look. When you're basically almost homeless and you're that close to living on the streets, when you've lost everything, I go, you're not scared of anything, So I promote that into my promos and my people, which it's true. So I'm just taking parts of my life that's been happening that people haven't seen or heard of, and and just I just mix that into with what's going on in the wrestling world and what Charlie Haas is doing. So.
Yeah, and Charlie, I'm so sorry to hear
Yeah.
everything you've been through.
That's okay.
I'm curious, was there a day when you decided I got to turn this thing around? Did something specifically happen to go, let's get out of this funk?
Yeah, I think it was when when you get going through all the divorce papers back and forth, and I'm like, and then especially when I'll tell you what the day was is when you sign the papers, and then your son calls you and he goes, hey Dad, man, there's somebody over here somebody in my kitchen eating my cereal, and I go, what? He goes, yeah, he says he's living here to get used to. I go, and right then I'm like, man, I was like, what is going on? I had no idea. I had no idea that there was somebody else like that, and boom. The kid's never met him, and he's there living. So, I think that was when I said, you know what? It's time to start feeling sorry for yourself. Evidently, she's moved on. The papers are signed, so, it's time for me to move on. And that was it.
Yeah. And it sounds like wrestling came around at the right time.
Yeah, it all came at the right time.
Pro wrestling's like your first love, so to be able to, fall back into love with that, it sounds like it's completely changed your course.
It's changed its course, and it's even to the point where I have the amateur wrestling school, but what I want to do is I'm going to open up, the professional wrestling school as well, and what I want to do is I just want to. There's two projects I have going on. One, I want to concentrate on just tag team wrestling, so I can, I'm doing singles myself, but I want to help the tag team wrestlers out. I think that it's become a lost art, and I think that if, the problem is I think the heels think too much into it. I think they try to outshine the baby faces, and that it just is not. It's not a good recipe for a tag team match. I see the refs get buried a lot in the matches. I want to be able to teach them what Arn Anderson taught me and what Jerry Briscoe taught me, or taught Shelton and I when we were tagging. And when you have the best mind in a business like Arn Anderson, that he put his stamp of approval on you on how to do tag team wrestling, then I want to be able to pass that down. And I think that's something no one does. Everyone has pro wrestling skills, but they don't have any pro wrestling skills that specify tag team wrestling or work for tag team wrestling. So I want to do that. Two, I'm starting a junior wrestling alliance, which is for it's for younger kids from ages 10 to 15, 10 to 16, and I'm not. And I know everyone's like, oh, wait, hold on now. These kids are too young. You can't teach pro wrestling to kids. But I'm like, you can. And what I'm going to do that's different is that they won't wrestle outside the ring. They won't go off the top turnbuckle or anything like that. They won't be able to do power bombs or the power bombs or spine busters. Anything that's going to give a whiplash where it's head first. We won't have that in this in this alliance, what we will do is we will concentrate on, chain wrestling, how to work the crowd, the timing, the spacing, your hip toss, your body slams, the psychology, heel versus face, how to get heat, body parts to work. Because I'm sitting there going, if you could teach a kid to do that, and I've done it with my two kids, my 11 and 9-year-old, they're already wrestling against each other in front of crowds, and they're doing a great job. But if you do that at this age, and then by the time they're 18, 19, or 20, you can have another Randy Orton on your hands, And I think Randy's at the best there is right now. I don't know. It's hard to say, okay, at 18, you can become a pro wrestler, and we expect to cram all this knowledge into you in 3 or 4 years to be on top, if not next. I'm like, it's impossible, you don't wake up in the morning and say, hey, I'm going to be a professional football player and then go out and try out for the Cowboys. No, you start from the time you're in little leagues, baseball, pee-wee, it's so why not? Hockey, you got to start from the minors. Below the minors, like from a youth foundation. And those kids get a lot. Come on, youth football and hockey and lacrosse, there's as much head injury or concussions than there would be in professional wrestling, So I'm just saying, what I'm doing is I'm taking out the major moves that can cause concussions, and I'm just teaching them the basics. Timing and spacing and footwork is the key to professional wrestling. If you're going too slow, it's the right speed for television. And of course, at the young age, they have to understand the win or loss, like how that's predicted and how that goes. It's already been exposed. So, and once my kids understood it, they're like, oh, they just want to work for the match, and they don't care. So, and that's the big difference. So, I'm excited. We'll see where it goes from there.
The thing I love about your story is if we take this way back, pro wrestling is what led you to amateur wrestling, which is so interesting because it's usually the other way around.
I know. Yeah, when I was I was a big pro wrestling fan. Growing up watching I turned on TV and I saw Lou Albano and Ray Crippler Stevens beating up Jimmy Superfly Snuka. And then they pile drove him twice on the cement, and then you saw the big X go through there. And this is for WWF at the time, and I was like, oh my God, this is great. And then, I was hooked. And then, cable just came out, and 605 to 805 WTBS, Gordon Soley, Georgia Championship Wrestling or World Championship Wrestling. And then I was able to get, then Midnight, the Von Erichs, World Class Championship Wrestling, and then there's a lot of different territories that I was able to pick up because of cable. But yeah, when we were in Oklahoma, I went out, I saw for 7th grade junior high, they had wrestling. I was like, oh, I'm going to go out for wrestling. It's great. So I got there and I thought I was going to walk into a room with a ring, and it was not. It was all amateur wrestling mats. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. And I'll tell you, we were talking about it like the first 2-3 years. I got my butt kicked, and it was terrible because these kids have been wrestling since they were like kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, 3rd grade. Like the way I'm teaching my kids now, But that started in 7th grade, and I didn't get good till like the end of my 9th grade year. Until I really just turned the corner. But I stuck with it. Because I actually my 7th grade year, it was so bad. I went out for the basketball team after wrestling, and I didn't make the team there, so I went back to just get my butt kicked in wrestling. So there was really nothing else to do. So I can't jump, so I might as well. Hopefully, eventually, I'll learn how to wrestle. So it paid off, though.
We always hear stories about how you or Kurt Angle, Shelton Benjamin, Brock Lesnar was an easy transition from amateur wrestling to pro wrestling. How easy is it really?
I think it's an easy transition if you're a fan. If you grew up watching it. So it's kind of like, if you're a fan of the UFC, like if you know all those holds and all the technique that Joe Rogan's calling out in the middle of a UFC match, then it's good. Like for me, when I grew up hearing Gordon Soley or Jim Ross, talking about, oh, he's got the headlock takeover, the Irish whip, oh, it's an up and over, oh, baseball slip between the legs, arm drag, hip toss, I think that was easy because I knew everything they were talking about. So when I started training, when Mike Sharp started training me, he's like, do you know this? I'm like, yeah, I know that because you're a fan. You know, like some of the moves I could do already because I probably practiced on my mom's. I didn't have access to a ring, but we destroyed a lot of bed frames on the king size bed of my parents' house. So. Drop kicks, yes, body slams and all, suplexes. So, I thought it was an easier transition, especially when you take the work ethic of an amateur wrestler. That helps out a lot as well.
But I mean, the biggest difference though is in amateur wrestling, the last thing you want to do is be on your back.
Right.
And in pro wrestling, you have to somehow get comfortable with
Right.
that.
You're exactly right. It's kind of, it's also very similar to like when I get a bunch of people that come in to be one amateur wrestler. Well, I go, what other sports have you taken? Oh, we do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Well, so with that, that's great, but we have to teach them that you can't pull anyone in a guard. You can't go to your back. In amateur wrestling, you never want to go to your back. It's always, you got a hand control workup. You got to, you want to control the hands and be able to get up and get your hips out from underneath and escape. Where, in amateur wrestling and in pro wrestling, you have to be comfortable to be on your back, and it's something that you just have to, that's something you have to put in the back of your mind and you have to work for. So.
Yeah. With your incredibly decorated amateur career, how did WWE find you?
So I was a tag team with my brother, and the Steiners were over in WCW. Jerry Briscoe heard that there was a brother tag team out from Oklahoma that was on the independents, and that was us. And he got word to Kevin Kelly to look us up and try to find us, and Kevin Kelly did. We were working at the time we were the Jersey All Pro Tag Champions and the CZW Tag Team Champions, and we just started working for Jim Kettner, who used to run ECWA, the Super 8. It was a big tournament at the time, so Jim Kettner got in touch with us, said, "Hey, we'd like to take a look at you guys." So we came in and we did our first dark match in Madison Square Garden, which was like pretty. I mean,
That's insane. Yeah.
So we did our first dark match there, and then they came to us that night and they said, "Hey, can you guys be in Pittsburgh the next night?" We're like, "When?" They're like, "Tomorrow." So it was, that was where SmackDown was being filmed. We're like, "Yeah, sure." So we made up whatever lies we had to work, like called in sick, and we drove to Pittsburgh. And then when we got there, after that match, Jerry, Jim Ross, and Bruce Pritchard were like, "Haas Brothers, we need to see you." And we went in there. We thought they were going to say, "Thank you very much for your time. We need to work on this." But they gave us developmental deals to go to report to Memphis by December of 2001. So that's what we did. I'm sorry, January of 2001. So, and that's where, and we were excited, man. So that was, but we spent, people don't know, we spent about 5 years on the independents prior to that. So it wasn't like it just happened. I mean, we were working our butts off everywhere. And, we were trying to get into ECW actually, but, it didn't work out that way. We actually ended up, with WWE. And then from there, we were down in Memphis, and then we got sent to Cincinnati, HWA. They closed down Memphis, and what happens? They buy WCW and ECW, and then we're like, now we have, they buy those, and then they bring all the people in from those organizations into the developmental territory. And at the time, you only had the two territories. It was OVW and HWA. And and now we're trying to tread water, trying to get through all the debris. Like it was a shipwreck, and we're trying to float through to the top of the water to catch our breath. And we're passing all this debris, and it's like all these other wrestlers that are coming down, like that are being thrown at us. And then my brother dies. I'm like, oh my God, So like it's just, I'm talking about adversity. And like I said, wrestling teaches you to get out of uncomfortable positions. So I was able to survive that, and then and to prove myself even after his death, that that this is my goal. I still want to focus on making it to WWE, or to get. I know it was under developmental contract, but to get to the top. And so eventually it worked out, man. They put Shelton and I together. A team angle eventually was supposed to be Kurt, Shelton, myself, and my brother. It was supposed to be 4 of us. So it went to 3 instead of 4, but it still worked out. So.
Yeah, you talk about getting out of uncomfortable situations.
Yeah.
Like, how much did your brother's death impact you at that time?
It destroyed me, man. It was like the basically. It's like the divorce to Jackie. He's your best friend. You grew up with him. Your baby brother, your little brother, and then he dies. You find him dead, and you're just like, man. Is this really happening? It was tough. It really was. I had to. Then you have to call your mom and dad and tell them that you found your brother dead, and that's not good. And it was. I didn't think I was going to be able to get out of that. I really didn't. I didn't know what I didn't know how to survive that, but then I didn't know what WWE was going to do. I didn't know if they were, they signed the Haas brothers, not Charlie Haas. And, thank God that Jim Ross saw he's like, hey, we can still do this with Charlie and Shelton. And then Arn Anderson, he's like, well, let me take Charlie and let me take Shelton. Let me see what I can do with them for about a year. And we basically just travel with Arn, and he put us in the ring prior to our to the house show matches or the dark matches, and man, and then after, and taught us, man, he taught us everything he knew. And his heart was into it as much as ours, man. And that's when I knew someone really cared. And he really put everything into us. And then at Shelton, thank God, I just found a partner that was just like my brother, and he is my brother actually. And it just worked. It wasn't too. I mean, Shelton had the same goals as I did, and man, and it just I just was lucky, very lucky.
And Kurt Angle has said, and I couldn't agree with him more. He said that the run as Team Angle should have gone on way longer. He said it should have been 3 years.
It should have been. And what people don't understand is at the time that we were getting hot on Team Angle, who's getting hot? Who is hot over on Raw? And that was it was Evolution. And but then when you have 4 guys and you have 3, and all of a sudden when they do the mix, they would do our mix pay-per-views, and we're starting to get better reaction than them. And I don't care what they'll say, but then you can ask Kurt, and Shelton may not say it because he's with WWE now. But dude, we were getting a better reaction than they were. We're getting, and I think that had a lot to do. Okay, it's time to split them, So because they kept Evolution going, and that's just the way it is. It's just that it's the way it is. So.
Yeah. Would you say that Kurt is one of the very best you've ever been in the ring with?
Yeah, you know what? Because Kurt was never a fan of pro wrestling, and neither was Brock. But they were able to pick it up like that. I think Kurt was very, very good. To pick it up in such a short time, he's one of the best ever. And he understood the psychology. Does he know all the moves and all that? No, but he would come and you say, hey man, how do I do this, or what's the move for this, and you would show him, and he'd know it right then and there. He'd know how to do it. So he's got an audit. He's also got a very good he'll tell you too. He's got a photographic memory. So everything that they would write down, he would memorize like that, so he could do the speech really quick. So he's very intelligent human being. Who just was able to pick up the sport very well, and he was able to apply it, man. And I think that a lot of that has to come with his amateur background as well, just being so successful in it.
I think that's part of being an amateur wrestler, right? That student mentality of always constantly learning every single time you're on the mat.
All the time, because whenever you're taken down, or if you're put in a hold, you got to know how to. You got to rely on the technique on how to get out of it, Or if it's something that you got to feel the technique. If you feel something getting ready to be put on you, you better start thinking right there, getting going into that Rolodex in your brain. Boom! All right, I feel that arm bar coming on. How do I get out of it? All right, elbow down. Pull the arm out, hip down, which hip goes down. I mean, there's so much to it you have to, and that doesn't come overnight. And it's repetition after repetition. I always say consistency is a mark of a champion. So you got to be consistent in your work. And that's one of my mottos. And also, those little things make a big difference. You got to know the little things in order to make the big difference.
Yeah. When you talk about Arn Anderson and everything you learned from him and those little things, what's something we could see Charlie Haas doing in the ring now that might have been implemented by some teachings from Arn Anderson?
One is, the way I work is I work the body part. I work body parts. And it's just an old cliche. Arn Anderson would say, he's like, we go out there and we are going to render that that body part useless until we're going to beat them with it or make them submit with it. He goes, you don't go into Walmart and buy a 4-legged table. A 3-legged table, do you? No. He goes, so you got to look at that opponent as a table. He has 4 limbs. We're gonna take off one of those limbs and beat him with it. So that's what I do. So I will look at my opponent, and okay, if he's a high flyer, I'm gonna try to ground him. If he's a giant, well, I'm going to take a leg out. If he's strong upper body, I'm looking to take out an arm. So you got to look at your opponent, and then you got to look at the psychology. Like the other day, I worked a match, and I don't think anyone's ever done this before. Kevin Sullivan, I asked him about it, and he's like, "Let's try it." And the guy was in good shape, really young, really. So what I did is I worked his eyes. So every time right off the bat, he started out wrestling me, I just blinded him. Boom, he couldn't see. Every time he started coming up, I go right back to the eyes. I use the ropes to rake his eyes. I use the mat, my laces, the heel of my shoe. So I work. That's a body part, right? If you can't see, you can't wrestle. So I thought I was genius. So So
the ref gives you a 5 count to keep going with that.
Yeah. So every time or if I'm working if I'm trying to take a turnbuckle off the ring, the ref's over there trying to put it back on. I'm just gouging his eyes when he's not seeing me. So it's perfect. And it's
Classic
just
heel. I love that.
and that's the thing is like I use the ring as a weapon. And so like listen, I'm older. I can't do the front flip. I was never able to do front flips or anything. So I do incorporate gymnastics for amateur wrestling. I think it's very important because it builds your strength, and you can't teach kids to lift when they're little, but they can do gymnastics, and that makes them stronger, especially in amateur wrestling. I never had a chance to. My brother did that, but I never did that. I wish I did, because today everyone does all these flips, and they're all very acrobatic in pro wrestling. But no one works body parts anymore, or they work so they're so worried about getting all these moves in. I'm like, man, I'm going to take it to a different level. What's old is new, and I'm telling you right now, if you just work the work between the moves is what's important. I incorporate the crowd. I make sure they hate me. I find that one person that wants to just punch me right in the face, and I'll get right in their face. I'm like, please hit me. Just hit right. And there's that barrier. And if they hit me, I'd be glad. I'd be like, yeah. I'm having food thrown at me. I'm having people tell me it's getting so loud that I can't even cut the promos. I'm like, I'll start to speak, and they get louder and louder. And I'm like, you guys are really. I'm going to sit out here all day until you guys quiet down so I can finish what I have to say, and then they get louder. I mean, it's that reverse psychology that I've learned from Arn. And really, it's the old Anderson, that's the old Anderson, work ethic, man. You just wear them down. You make the baby face fight from underneath, and if they can't do it, and if their intensity doesn't match yours, then you know what? You just beat them. That's it. So,
Yeah.
And that's what I've been doing, man. I've just been going. I've watched so much old school stuff, and I just apply that.
After Team Angle broke up, what direction were you given for your character?
I was lost, man. I'll be honest with you. And that is where, like I said, I was always a tag team wrestler. I was never a singles wrestler. And all of a sudden, who's Charlie Haas? They put me with. I had a great match with RVD, and then I had a really good match with Rico, and they put me with Rico together, and we won the tag titles there. And that was tough because I loved the character. I loved working with Rico. Other tag teams refused to work with us because they didn't want to be in the ring with Rico because of the character, and it hurt him a lot. I knew he was upset about that. And some of them, man, took their what would you call it? They took it out on him in the ring physically, when they had to. It was uncalled for, some of the stuff that he went through. And I think today, he's suffering through concussions and all that stuff. That he's had he's having some mental issues right now. Or
Wow.
yeah. But you know what? But we had a great tag team, and we won the tag team titles. That was really cool. And but then when they separated us, then I went into singles, and that was tough because I didn't know Charlie Haas as a singles wrestler.
And is that when you were doing the impersonation gimmick?
Yeah, Johnny Ace came up with that, and I think they were really trying to get rid of me, they were trying to find a way to get me out of there. But what I did is I looked at it as a chance to honor the people I grew up watching, embrace it, and I did the best I could. Like I didn't want anyone to say, "Oh yeah, he has a bad attitude, let's get him out of there." Dude, I just like, it's funny. Like I get more people that come to me and like, "Hey, we remember when you did this character, this is the character." Like, it's part of my career. I look back and I'm like, well, I did it because I had to. I'm really not proud of it, but it's not something that I wanted my career to be based on. But I guess a lot of people liked it and they watch it because I get more people come up to me like, that was the best stuff, when you were doing this and that. And so I guess it made, I guess other people, they liked it, and that's cool. But I think that I keep trying to tell them like, well, if you watch the stuff now over at SWE or where I'm at today, you'll see it's a different Charlie Haas, and you'll probably like that better. But to each their own. So I mean, if I was able to touch someone's lives by honoring some of the legends we had, then yeah, that's cool.
Did you ever do an impersonation where the person was like, no, this is how you do it? Like they were walking you through their entrance?
No, like with Bret Hart and Stone Cold Steve Austin, man, they would call me like on Tuesday and say, okay, next Monday, here's who you got to be. And I would go, and I would watch day after, like for those 5 days, everything they did. Everything they did, the way they walked in the ring, the way they got in the ring, the way they would get out of the ring to put the, like Brett would get out of the ring a certain way to put the, and I always saw his laces would always be tucked over. I don't know, it's hard to explain. I have to go back and check, but he would get out of the ring.
I love the detail. This is great.
To put the glasses on the, on the child, and then he would get back in. But it was to the detail, like Austin, let's see who else. Oh, JBL was the best. That was, I did it so good that, I almost broke him in the ring. Like, he almost started laughing, and he slapped the bottle of Mama Joanna out of my hand. I pulled out another one. He was like, and I went, it was so good that they had me do it the next week. It was a continuation of it. And JBL was actually, he wanted me to be like his sidekick, like Boss Hogg had Dewey Hogg, in the Dukes of Hazzard. So I'd be like in shape JBL at the time. But him and I, but because of that, him and I are really good friends, and really good friends. So but he's a big fan of it. He was a big fan of all my stuff we were doing then, and he was trying to get Vince to make me like the CHL. So but they went with a different direction. But yeah, I was excited about that. But when you start hearing from the people that you're what do you call that? You're honoring, and they enjoy it. That's good. The only one I didn't like was when I had to do JR, and because I don't know what was going on between JR and WWE, but they wanted me to really make fun of them. And here's a man that signed me to my contract, and I was kind of my feet were put to the fire to that, and I was like, I wasn't too happy about that. So, I think I've apologized to him for it, and it's still one I wish I could have said, put my foot down, and said I don't want to do that. It's not fair, but at the time I couldn't.
But you're put in a bad position where it's like, you probably don't even really have the option to say no.
No, you really don't. And I didn't have the pull or the time. I wasn't at that level to where say, no, we're not going to go that direction. So, and that's one thing I regret doing. I mean, I just it wasn't fair to him, and I apologized to him for it. And I have, but we've talked, but still, it was wrong. I just felt like it was wrong.
But it sounds like you kind of knew after Team Angle broke up that, you didn't really have much direction, that your time maybe was limited in WWE.
It was. I think it was limited, and I was doing whatever I could. I was married. I had kids. Kids on the way. And there was really no place to work afterwards. TNA was just starting. I mean, going to Japan. I'd go, and I did go to Japan. Worked for All Japan, New Japan. I was doing down in Mexico. But then, you're back home. There's your wife's got 4 kids, and lots going on, and you're trying to she's raising them, and you're never home. So there's a lot of pressures of your home life and all that. I mean, maybe that was a lot of the reason towards our divorce as well too. So you never know. It's just you were trying to keep your job as long as you could. Like I said, there was nowhere else to work. There wasn't an AEW. There Ring of Honor was just off and running. But they weren't giving out contracts, and there was nowhere else really to work like there is today. That's why I'm excited for professional wrestling and where it's at today.
Yeah, it's a completely different landscape now. Like, if you don't sign to WWE, you can go to AEW or Impact or Ring of Honor or MLW or New Japan or.
Yeah, I mean, which is great. Is like, and I keep telling everybody, I look at those other, all those other different companies that you mentioned as like a territory, as it was when I was growing up. And because we have internet TV, I mean, I never thought internet TV would take off. I just never bought into it. But then I'm like, the pandemic hit, unfortunately, but then people were like, okay, we got to cut the cord. So they started cutting the cable, and everyone started, all of a sudden, man, Roku has, Roku and Fire Stick and, and I mean, Chromecast and whatever out there. But all of a sudden you get Pluto TV. I go to Pluto, type in like Fight TV, and you have TNA, you have or Impact, you have MLW, you have PCW Ultra, which is unbelievable. Which I think that if you watch PCW,
I went to a show recently in LA. Incredible,
dude. I'm like, how is no one taking this company and like? I mean, this thing is like, if you just watch them on Pluto, their production's better than Ring of Honor's. I mean, it's unbelievable, man. I'm like, this is great, and their talent is so good. I mean, it's really good. So I'm glad. Thank you for being an advocate, because I always tell people that, and they're like, well, we haven't seen it yet. I'm like, go watch them. I go, then you got MLW, and then you have, like you said, AAA has their own. AAA has their own channel on Pluto, and I mean, it's just, and then you got Japan, New Japan USA is real big here now. Ricky Romero's the booker there. I know Tanahashi's the USA champion for that. But I mean, dude, there's so many places to work now. And I'm like, eventually everyone wants to go to WWE or AEW, but these other places have a chance. They give you a chance to work, to make a living, but you learn your craft. And if you go from organization to organization, you'll learn their styles. By the time you get called up, man, you're going to be very well marketable, And plus,
and on top of that, you've now got the ability to make money with merch, like ProWrestlingTees.com was not a thing 10 years ago. You can make money streaming, whether that's on YouTube or on Twitch. Like, there's other opportunities to make money outside of just, being an indie darling, which is what your option was 10, 12 years ago.
100%. So I believe that. I tell everyone, I go, don't be in such a rush. Build your, like you said, build your marketing. Build yourself. Become a self-marketer, or build your marketing like around Twitch or YouTube, because the more followers you have, the more the more undeniable you're going to become. So I say, build your name, build everything, your brand, build that brand. So if WWE wants you, they say, hey, we want to sign you, but we're not going to go with your name. We're going to go with this name. No, I don't think so. What do you mean? Well, no, because I got like 2 million followers already, and I did it without you. So I'm going to stay with my name, and I'll just go somewhere else if you don't appreciate it. I always tell everybody, Joe Henning should have been Joe Henning. You don't bring him in and make him McGillicuddy. How can you do that? You're going to make him uncomfortable in his own skin. He can't. No one. I mean, he's a third-generation wrestler, man. Let him be him. And I'm like, you just don't go in and change it and say, no, you're going to be a McGillicuddy. Well, I mean, that no one's going to. I mean, the only person that made that work was Lucille Ball, because she was Lucy McGillicuddy, I mean, and people even, that's throwing my age way back there, but if anyone knows who she is.
I mean, it's kind of what they're doing with Braun Breaker right now.
I know, man. He's a Steiner. Just let him be. I mean, just let him be a Steiner. I don't get it. I really don't. Well, you know what'll happen is he'll leave to go to AEW. Then they'll bring him back, and he'll come back as Steiner. I mean, that's what'll probably happen. I mean, it's ridiculous.
I just don't get why he wouldn't be Steiner in the first place. I had a similar conversation with Eddie Guerrero's daughter, and it's like they didn't want her to be a Guerrero because those shoes were too big to fill. And I'm like, that's ridiculous. It's your real last name.
They're letting Dom do it with Ray. I mean, so why wouldn't they? I don't get that either. I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with not Rick, but I think probably it might be because of the comments, or maybe the way Scott feels about WWE. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe they're trying to stick it to the Steiner name. I mean, who knows?
Maybe.
They hold. Who knows? I mean, that's my personal opinion. So, but
with this amazing landscape of indie wrestling right now, where can we see you most often?
Okay, so man, I was with the SWE. I'm the SWE World Heavyweight Champion, and I am going to be with wrestling for. They've worked out a deal with Tom Lance has worked out a deal with Pro Wrestling, World Class Pro Wrestling with Jerry Bostic. And so I'll be on there as well. So I'll be defending my SWE World Heavyweight title coming up, and that's going to be against Gino Medina. He's an MLW star, and that is going to be on December 11th. So that's coming up.
And whereabouts is that? Is that in Dallas?
Yeah, it's in Dallas, Texas. They have, and actually I signed a 28 deal. 28 match contract with World Class Pro Wrestling, so I will be wrestling for them, and they'll be all throughout the Dallas. I mean, they wrestle from anywhere from up in Texas all the way up to Missouri, wherever they're booked. So I'm looking forward to working with them. They got some great. There's been a lot of people that are from SWE that'll be there, and there's also going to be there's a lot of people that Jerry Bostic has developed in his own with. With World Class, that's going to be really good. I'm excited because I'm going to be working with not only Kevin Sullivan, but I'm also going to be working with Eric Embry, who's one of the bookers as well. Now, Eric Embry's, I've gotten to know him, and people understand that with Eric Embry, he helped revive the World Class territory when the Von Erichs were when it was towards the end of the World Class era, and when the Von Erichs were, I think Kevin was the only one that was left. And it was dying, and he came in and revived that whole territory for a good year or two with his big his big feud with Skandar Akbar. So it was a really good. It's really good to be working with him. He's old school, and so am I. So I'm excited, man. I'm excited to see where this goes. I mean, you got Kevin Sullivan and Eric Embry working together. You can't get any better than that, because my goal is, what's good for Charlie Haas afterwards. Man, I want to be. I want to book. I want to write. I want to help develop talent. And I think, when you got to look at it this way. Kevin Sullivan, he's the last living link to Eddie Graham, who is one of the greatest bookers of all time, as anyone will tell you. So if I can learn from him and Eric Embry, then it helps my dossier, my CV, my resume that much more when it's time for me to hang it up totally and try to pursue other parts of wrestling. So.
Yeah, so December 11th in Dallas. I'm actually going to be in Dallas that weekend, so I think I will see you there then.
Well, I would love for you to come out there. We would love to have you out there. If
that'd be awesome.
I would love to have you out there, man, and maybe we'll work it out to where you could be a guest ring announcer or something. That's what I'm looking at. I would love to.
Yeah. All right.
Now that I'm their champion, I think I got some pull. So let's bring you out. I would love to have you as a guest ring announcer. And what I'll do is I'll talk to Jerry Bostic to have you guest ring announce for my match.
I would love to. That'd be so cool.
Great,
okay.
man.
Well, if I'm already going to be there,
so why not? Let's do it, man. I think that'll be perfect. So I'll put Jerry in touch with you, and we'll have that, man. Oh my God, man! Are you kidding me? That'd be great. Have you as a guest ring announcer? That'd be awesome. I appreciate that.
Oh man, I'm in. So anybody that's in the Texas area or Dallas area is listening, come join us December 11th.
December 11th, definitely. It's also going to be at. Let me think where it's going to be. I want to say it's at.
Give us all the details.
It's going to be. Okay. So it's going to be at the. Let me pull up the poster here, but it is going to be.
Well, Mick Foley's on the card, which I'm so stoked about.
Yeah, and it's going to be at Southern Junction. That's where it's going to be located at, down in downtown Dallas. Mick Foley's going to be there. Who else are they going to have? Like I said, Eric Embry will be there on hand, to sign autographs. So will Kevin Sullivan.
I think Jacob Fatu's there too.
Yeah, Jacob Fatu's going to be on there. You'll see myself will be there. Who else they have? Jacob Fatu. Then I want to say there's going to be some really good ladies matches. I want to see that are going to be there. And
Carlito's on this poster that you sent me too.
Yeah, Carlito is on the poster. God, I haven't seen Carlito in a while. We're really good friends. You guys got to go see Carlito. Yeah, you guys got to see Carlito. Wrestle. He's phenomenal. And who else? Who else is at Southern Junction? It's in Dallas. I want to say it starts at 7:30. But doors will open. I'm sure they'll have a meet and greet prior to that. So.
Yeah, and it's worldclassprowrestling.com for tickets and more info. But all you need to know is Charlie's going to be there in the main event, and now I am going to be there.
Yes,
so join me.
Dude, I'm excited. Yeah, so now you have to come. So I'm excited, man. Thanks for accepting that offer and coming. That's going to be great, man.
If I'm already in the area, let's make this happen.
Let's make it. No, I want. Yeah.
We should have done this in person. Jeez.
I know. I know. I should have flown out to where you're at, and we could have done this. I know.
You're all over the place, so I'm sure that other than Dallas, our paths are going to cross much more than just this one time.
Definitely, man. Hopefully, maybe this will be a working relationship. Maybe this will go off good. So I'm hoping. So.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Look, it's been so great hearing your story, and I'm very inspired by how you've dealt with the hardships that you've had,
I appreciate
and how you've come over them, and you've come out a better person on the other side of them too.
Well, you know what? I'm sure a lot of people have been through a lot harder things than I have. But that's my story, and I'm not saying mine's the hardest. By no means it isn't. But it's just if I could help somebody overcome, that can overcome what I've been through or help them, then then so be it. Then then I would like to do that. So.
Yeah, look, I end every interview talking about gratitude because it's been such an important thing in my life. So, what are 3 things in your life right now that you're grateful for?
Man, my kids, and I'll be honest, I think I have a better, stronger relationship with God now than I ever did before. I think if my wife and I, at the time, Jackie and I, had a stronger relationship in God, maybe our marriage would have been saved. But as me as a human being, I have a better relationship with Him. My kids are grateful because I by no means have forced it on them, but they're closer to God because of that. And my daughter wrote me a letter saying, "Dad, thank you for bringing me closer to God." And I wasn't even trying to do that. And that really was heartfelt. And for my family, how close they, my dad and brother are gone, but my sisters and my mom, how much they've been there for me. So I'm grateful for family, my kids, and God.
Love that. Charlie, thank you so much. And I will see you December
Yes, sir,
11th
man.
in Dallas.
We definitely will. And I'll put you in touch with Jerry, definitely. Thank you so much, Chris. I
Awesome.
appreciate it.
No, thank you.